Hi, I'm Alex Paulton. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today, we're going to take a look at one of the pieces I've had for a while in the collection and I've talked about in the past. And we're going to take a close-up look at it today. And that's the Black Bay Heritage. It's got the modified ETA movement and some other aspects that we'll talk about when we flip the camera around. But before I do that, I'd like to ask you, if you do like the show, please leave a like. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And yeah, we can continue to talk about cool watches. Here we have the Tudor Black Bay Heritage, also known as the Smiley. It's a really, really nice piece. The reason they call it the Smiley is because of the arced rotor self-winding statement here. You know, it says rotor self-winding in a little bit of an arc, and that arc also follows the snowflake in the hour hand. It's really an attractive piece. Now, the Black Bay Heritage, and the reason they call this the Heritage, it was the first version that came out in 2012. They came out with a bunch of other Black Bays, but this was the one that they wanted to kind of make an homage to a lot of their previous designs, and that's why it's got the snowflake hands and it's got the red bezel. It also, if you look closely, it has the same color, the same red in the barrel, right at the point where the crown joins the case. There's a little bit of the barrel visible, and it's red. You can see the little red highlights on that barrel. Now, the Tudor Heritage has an ETA 28-24 movement. In fact, they don't even bother to hide it in this version. They call it the Tudor 28-24. And the interesting thing about that is they've modified it heavily. So it may be an ETA 28-24, but it is, first off, the highest grade ETA 28-24 that's available. And then Tudor takes it and they modify it even further by replacing the Inca block shock mechanism with a KIF mechanism, the same type that Rolex uses. And it's also replacing the regulatory mechanism with the standard, from the standard ETA regulating mechanism to a Triovis style regulator, which is not what Rolex uses because their movements take a different regulation system, being free-sprung balance wheels. But the Triovis regulation mechanism is easier and more precise for the jeweler to adjust the ETA 28-24 with. So by doing these heavy modifications, and I believe it also has they replaced the hairspring with a parachrome. So essentially, it is an ETA 28-24, but it's been so heavily modified that Tudor doesn't feel the need to hide the heritage of the piece, the movement behind some phony model name. They call it the Tudor 28-24 because they recognize that they've done enough to it that they don't feel the need to defend themselves from using an ETA base movement. Now, one of the things that the Black Bay is known for is the very beautiful and clean play of the bezel. The action on the bezel is nice. It doesn't have a lot of spring back. In fact, there's almost none once it sits. It doesn't move at all, in fact. Once it's in position, there's no wobble. It's just a really, really nice bezel. And the now let's compare the bezel real quick. I happen to have the other dive watch here, and this is a Seamaster GMT, and it's got decent action, but you can hear that it's just a big spring in there clicking away. It doesn't have the positive feel of the Tudor, but then again, the Tudor really puts a lot of effort into that bezel. And Omegas are known for functional but not impressive bezels. So As far as the indices go, the indices on the Tudor are similar to the Seamaster. They're a little larger. They're both metal surrounds filled with luminous material, and the Tudor wins hands down, no pun intended, hands down for visibility because of that huge snowflake hand. And the Seamaster skeleton hands can be read, and even in dark light because they are pretty well loomed. But for straight up visibility, the Black Bay Heritage wins hands down on that aspect. I've mentioned this before in earlier videos. If you wanted a sports watch, get the Seamaster. If you want an all-around daily wear watch, get the Tudor. It really is a fantastic piece. The only thing wrong with the Tudor is that it's not a Rolex, because everyone you meet, they love this watch. Unless they're wearing a Rolex, then of course you get the obligatory, well, it's the poor man's Rolex comment, which kind of makes it a little bit of a pain in the butt to wear around Rolex people. Some of them will recognize that Tudor's a cool brand, but unfortunately, Tudor is under and will always stay under the Rolex shadow among collectors. Among the general public, though, Tudor has managed to really, really make a name for itself. I mean, it has a legacy that goes way back. Tudor provided watches to government and military for decades. So we're talking about a watch with serious horological chops, really, really good modified movement inside, very, very high quality workmanship. I mean, by definition, the Tudor has a Rolex quality case and finish, which is exactly what Hans Wilsdorf intended. The Black Bay Heritage is everything Hans Wilsdorf wanted for Tudor, which he created. Hans Wilsdorf created Tudor as a company to offer Rolex quality to the world without spending all of that money on a Rolex movement. He created Tudor to use Rolex cases, bracelets, crowns, and such, and use off-the-shelf movements, which is exactly what this has. This has an ETA 2824 modified by Rolex for Tudor. Gives the watch a unique value proposition. It's literally pretty much the best you can get from off-the-shelf Swiss movements put into the best that you can get as far as I missed the point. The best that you can get as far as mainstream case finishing and quality. I mean, at the end of the day, this is still a mainstream luxury product, and something, say, for example, like a Jaeger-LeCoultre Polaris with a hand-finished case, you would be able to see the quality differences between something like this and, say, a Jaeger-LeCoultre. Or even, for example, on a Rolex nowadays, they've gone beyond the fit and finish and the bracelets on these, which are very, very good, very supple, curved a little bit like Rolex's, a very, very good milled deployant buckle like Rolex, but no quick adjust. It does have micro adjustment holes, but Rolex doesn't like to compete with themselves. None of their models are truly competitive with one another. In fact, this was so popular when they came out with the next generation, they put fake rivets on the side to really make it stand apart from the Submariner, so that the Black Bay couldn't really compete with the Submariner, because fake rivets would turn off a lot of the higher end buyers. So Rolex deliberately price points these things to keep them within their lane, as it were. But it is a beautiful piece. It's a 41 by lug to lug. It's say 50, 49 and change. And the lug width is 21, Let me double check that. The lug width is, let's go up underneath it. My apologies. Here, going to fumble around for an hour just to figure out what the dumb lug width is. But it is a 22 lug width. So, 22 lug width, 41 wide case, pretty much 50 lug to lug. It's a large but compact watch in that sense. If you notice, it's thick, right? Its thickness is 12.6, which is actually pretty thick for a three-hander, but it's very flat back, so it would lie close to the wrist. Matter of fact, let's do a wristwatch check and put it on the wrist and take a look. I'm wearing my Omega Globemaster annual calendar. I really, really love this watch. There's a video on this watch in the archive, but a fantastic piece, and it makes the date just look sad. Seriously. Let's take it off. First off, the only annual calendar Rolex has is the Sky Dweller, and you can't even get your hands on one of those. So let's put this on the wrist. Really nice bracelet. I mean, but then again, Rolex quality, fit and finish. On the Tudor, you see it sits very flat on the wrist. There's not a lot of that bulking and arching you get with watches that have a big flared back. And the bracelet comes down very cleanly off the lugs. And I've got an 18 and change wrist centimeters, and this just looks gorgeous. It sits well, and yeah, the visibility, the look, it has fantastic wrist presence. The red bezel pops without being, ostentatious and over the top. It's just a beautiful daily wear piece. Like I said, the only negative is it's not a Rolex, and you can compare yourself with everybody you meet on the street, but then you meet a Rolex person, and then you're like, oh, well, I'm wearing the Tudor. So I think Tudor has a good chance of getting out from under the Rolex cloud, as it were, because it's being offered to us. It's being offered to us as the solution to Rolex sports watches. You can't get a Rolex sports watch, so buy a Tudor. They really are pushing it in our faces, and some people are cool with it and some aren't. I'm a little on the fence about it myself. What do you think? Do you think that it's good that Rolex has just said, okay, don't worry about not being able to get a Rolex and buy a Tudor? Or are you kind of upset that they've made this almost a bait and switch on us? I mean, Hans Wilsdorf did create the company Tudor to be a affordable Rolex tier, but now I think they're getting a little bit out of hand with it because Rolex really wants to be a luxury watch brand. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, and if we want to continue this conversation, we can also bring it up in the next live stream. So let's turn the camera around and close out the episode. That was the Black Bay Heritage, a really great watch, exactly what Hans Wilsdorf envisioned when he was talking about Rolex and the brand. Yeah, all in all, a really, really great daily wear piece and something worth considering for your collection. Thanks for taking the time to watch. I really appreciate it.